Good morning, everyone. Good morning, my president. That was an energizing opening that you gave there. Good morning, my chairman.
Good morning, sir.
Bishop Sam Bodibadru.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
sir.
everybody.
Nice to have you here.
Good to see all of you. My job is very easy after the sharp opening from the president, and it's basically to speak to how we as practitioners of HR can meet the expectations of our CEOs in this difficult business environment where things change every single day. I'm going to speak to that subject in 4 buckets. I'm going to speak to how we, HR practitioners, can meet the expectations of our CEOs, and may I also say of our boards, in a fast-paced business environment. I'm not going to spend too much time on definitions. So the 4 buckets basically, will be focused on sharing with you thoughts on how we can meet those expectations. So to keep the priority on the front burner, meeting expectations of CEOs, meeting expectations of board, I will keep the word meet in the 4 buckets that I'll be speaking to. So if you don't remember anything about my presentation, remember the word meet. So I will invite you to meet me, and that's why I don't think it's necessary to bother about the profile reading, because I will introduce myself to you in the context of meeting the expectations of our CEOs and boards in a fast-paced business environment. Again, as a second bucket, I will introduce you to a fast-paced business environment, which you know very well. Anyone operating in Nigeria is familiar with what it means for an environment to be fast-paced. The world is fast-paced. We've created all kinds of acronyms to describe it, from VUCA to all kinds. So Nigeria is a peculiar fast-paced business environment. Everything changes every day, in fact, every hour. The third bucket is what the expectations are that we are to meet. So CEO's expectations, board expectations, I'll summarize them in 3 pillars. And then we'll move on to what kind of leader you have to be to meet those 3 pillar expectations. So I have some nice pictures here, pictures that speak to the environment we're talking about a bit. You can see some old presidents of CIPM on the first picture. The bottom pictures, the 3 of them, show my chairman representing a board and 2 of my bosses, former Group Managing Director, CEO of Flour Mills, who is now the Vice Chairman, the former MD of Guinness, who was my boss as well, and my current boss, Boye, on the extreme bottom right corner of the screen. And my humble self, servant of all, wearing T-shirt there. So I hope I'll be able to introduce myself to you and talk about the attributes of a HR leader that enable us to meet the expectations of our CEOs and our board. I believe this will be useful for someone in here today. And why are we talking about these 4 buckets? It's because we found ourselves in an environment that changes every day and very fast. And so the expectations of our CEOs, of our boards, change every day and very fast as well, in line with the environment. So bear with me as I introduce you first to myself, then to the business environment that's fast-paced, Nigerian environment, of course. And as I introduce you to expectations that CEOs and boards do have of us as HR leaders. And last but not the least, wrapping it up with the kind of attributes you and I will need to develop to be able to meet those expectations of our board and our CEO. If you have any question as we go on, you can just drop them in the chat room or the Q&A template. I will take a look at them as we go. So let's start with me. And I'll tell you why I think I should introduce myself to you. I just retired from flour mills. I'm speaking to you from flour mills because I'm helping to onboard my successor. We've been at that journey for a month now, and we'll wrap that up by the end of September. So top right corner, you can see me. That's the youngest of my pictures I could find. And the left corner of the picture collage is me a few days ago, maybe like 3 weeks ago, I think. So you can see the changes in the pictures. The one at the bottom right corner was my first year in the University of Ibadan. Time flies so fast. So 21 years, I've been working with different CEOs. At the last count, I've worked with at least 10. And I've noticed from CEO to CEO, the expectations are always similar. And I've consolidated them into 3, which I will share with you later. So I've had this 85 career for 31 years. If I had NYSC, that would be even more. I've been privileged to lead HR functions in 4 multinational businesses, including this one, for the last 21 years. When I tell people have retired, they are like, no, that's not possible. How can you retire at 55? That's a subject for another day. It's a target I set for myself very early in my career. And I'm glad that God has enabled me to meet it. Why is this important? This is important because on reflection, I realized that the biggest challenge we face as HR practitioners is managing changes. I'm sure my president will have stories to tell of what HR practice was when he started his career. I believe he still partook of the personnel management days. And I remember the personnel manager that gave me my first job offer. Things have changed over time. And change is the only constant in life. The only difference is the pace of change ramps up from decade to decade. And I can tell you the pace of change now in the world, and especially in Nigeria, can be neck-breaking and is best explained with macroeconomics. So permit me to move quickly, therefore, to talk about Nigeria being a fast-paced business environment. For those of us in consumer goods industry, in the last 2 years, we've had to adjust prices almost on a quarterly basis. In fact, in some cases, especially for those organizations that import most of their inputs, and they have to access foreign exchange to do that. They had to adjust prices even more frequently because the impact of foreign exchange rates had been battering the cost of providing their goods and services. So in such an environment where things change rapidly, fast-paced, the CEOs are under constant pressure. The boards are under constant pressure. And the HR leaders that provide oversight for the most important assets that the businesses have to achieve their corporate objectives must be on their toes to respond with agility to the changes that come on a daily basis. I give you an example, one that we're still navigating till today, but somehow God has been helping all of us in the HR world to balance the delicate situation. First subsidy was removed by the pronouncement of Mr. President on the 29th of May. And from that moment, the challenge that the economy had been facing, that individuals have been facing, and most importantly, that Nigerian workers and businesses that employ them have been facing, have been horrendous. Just to find the mildest qualification I could utter publicly on it. We are close to the people. We see what they go through every day. Transportation costs suddenly tripled. Cost of feeding more than doubled. And all the other basic needs escalated in cost. For businesses too, cost of inputs went through the roof, and the elasticity to raise prices of goods to compensate for some of those cost escalations became limited. The risk that businesses face was you either stay in business, incurring losses, break even, or incur minimal return on investment, or you shrink the business, price yourself to the point where you have to lay off a good number of your workforce. Also, the employees have nowhere else to look up to for succor because we don't have a social security support system in the country that cater to the need of the mass of our population. So the few employers that are in business still have to provide some cushioning to support these employees. So that had been the challenge, and the board looks up to you as HR leaders. The CEO looks up to you as his or her partner in managing the workforce to come up with solutions. And every solution will demand spend, cash, money, which is what you actually don't have. So that volatility that we've been experiencing over the decades, with oil price, with FX rate, had been suppressing our economic growth. GDP had been slowing down. We went into recession. So the money is not there, even before the current crisis. And with the current crisis, the money is just not there. So as a HR leader, you come up with solutions and you look at the necessary fund to execute it, and you begin to face a dilemma on what should be prioritized. The business doesn't have the money, you have to not only present the solution and how much it will cost, but also where the money will come from to fund it. That had been the dilemma. That is the environment in which we operate. And unfortunately, even the workers, the employees look at you sometimes like they will look at a union leader, especially for a non-unionized segment of the workforce. And they expect so much from you because they believe that you have tremendous power to decide on what should happen. Whereas the decision at the end of the day can only be driven by what is the need for the business and for the workers. It's a balance of the two. And where the money is not available, there is only so little you could do. So it's a fast-paced business environment in which we operate. The macroeconomic impact is just a component of the numerous factors that make the environment so tough and changing so fast. There are several other factors. So, what does the CEO expect from us? The CEO expects HR leaders that are commercially oriented. What does that mean? You are not in the business team to practice HR only. You are in the business team to leverage HR practice to run the business profitably. And I'll repeat that. The expectations of the board and the CEO starts with a requirement that you are HR leader who is first of all a business leader, and you are in the business not to practice HR, but to leverage HR practice to run the business along with your colleagues profitably. So you are a business leader collaborating with other business leaders who come with different subject matter expertise, as you have come with HR subject matter expertise, to work together to run the business profitably. And that profitability is expected to keep growing, because year on year, if you don't grow the profitability, then you are not increasing the return on investment to the shareholders, to the owners of the business. So you are in business to collaborate with your colleagues to run the business profitably, leveraging HR knowledge, leveraging HR practice. That's the first expectation. So when you go to the business and say, oh, the workers are going through a lot of pains and we need to do something for them, the business will ask you, what should we do for them? How much will it cost? Where will the money come from? And what will be the return that the business should expect as a result of that investment? You have to be a business leader with commercial knowledge, with commercial acumen. Second expectation, you have to be the HR functional expert. When there are questions about legal matters, the team will turn to the head of legal or legal director. When there are questions about tax issues, the team will turn to the tax leader or the finance leader, as the case may be. And when there are people and organization questions, the business wants to turn to you. So you have to know your stuff. You are the internal consultant that the board and the business is looking up to guide them on issues relating to people and relating to the organization. So you be expected from time to time to guide the board, to guide the CEO himself on what is and what is not, what should be and what should not be. That is the second expectation. So if you are the HR leader that cannot answer the basic questions on how to get value out of the human resource that the organization has, which is the most important asset, then you are not meeting that expectation. So you must be knowledgeable in the application of all the skill blocks that we teach in CIPM about managing the human resource and delivering value through the human resource. So from sourcing to performance management to rewards to even culture, evolution, leadership development and other forms of development, consequence management, discipline, hierarchy, everything that would ensure that you have the right talent in the right role, delivering, focusing on the right priorities and delivering the right results and getting rewarded appropriately. You have to be the internal consultant. So the business leaders are looking up to you to tell them when they are wrong, encourage them when they are right, and guide them to make the right choices about people, about the organization. So in a fast-paced business environment like ours, in a tough economic environment that we have, like we have now in the country, if you don't take initiative regarding people, regarding the organization, nobody will. If you don't do anything about any situation that affects people and affects the organization, everybody else on the team will believe it's not necessary to do something. That's why you have not acted. So you are the one that will lead the initiative. You are the one that will identify, oh, a problem is brewing. And if we don't do something about it, these are the potential consequences. And these are the things we could do about it to ensure we avert the consequence or we take positive advantage of the situation for the benefit of all, the business and the workers. So you are the internal consultant and you should not be invited to act before you take the initiative. Because if you don't take the initiative, everybody will believe it's not necessary to do anything. And when negative consequences come, everyone will turn to you and ask you what you have been waiting for, how you could allow such a thing to happen under your watch. So on our watch, we have to make sure we gauge the pulse of the organization. We monitor the circumstances within and outside the business that impact on our people. And we come up with the right interventions at the right time to ensure that the people and the business have harmonious cohabitation that achieves the objectives of the business. So I was with my board chairman last night. We had a beautiful dinner along with other members of the board and my boss. And he made a comment that, gave me a lot of pride. Said, for the 9 years we've been here, we have not had crisis. And that is what the board and the business expects from us as HR leaders. We manage risk. Managers are in place to manage risk. If it's easy, we won't need them. It's because it's tough. It's because the business environment is fast-paced, it's tough, and situations are difficult that we need your brain power to anticipate crisis, to anticipate risk, and to leverage your expertise, your functional expertise to advance solutions that is effective, first of all, affordable, and rewarding for all the stakeholders. The third pillar, and this oftentimes can make the difference between a successful HR leader and those who are not so successful, despite the fact that they have functional expertise and business skill. Because what we used to argue about is HR should come to the table. And we say, oh, HR had not been coming to the table because we don't speak in business language. We don't talk to financial numbers. Now, we've gone beyond that. HR practitioners now can talk to P&L and dissect balance sheets. However, you may have that skill and still be a functional expert in HR practice, but if you don't have that third pillar, you may still fail. You have to be the conscience of the organization, the bridge that connects the interests of the workforce and that of the organization. And being the conscience of the organization is not one-sided. It's not being an employee champion alone. That's just one part of it. You also have to be the champion of the shareholders. So you are an arbiter of fairness. You are sitting between the two sides of a symbiotic relationship. And you are telling the workforce when they are not taking into consideration the interest of the shareholders who have placed their confidence on us and giving us their money for us to run the business. And you are speaking the truth to power that be, the board, and who represent the shareholders as well, when they are not considering the interest of the workforce. So you are the conscience of the organization. In fact, this is the human face, the H in the HR. And one of the things that gladdened my heart, talking about last night, was my board chairman said, you helped us to bring humanity into how we manage our people. These are the three pillars of expectations. And they all have to be on the table for you to be successful in the sight of your CEO, in the sight of your board. So if the board sees in you as an HR leader, a functional expert that can't speak, that can't even understand how the business makes money or how the activities of HR impact how the business makes money, then they don't see a successful HR leader or a HR leader that's meeting the expectation. And if you have that business acumen and the functional expertise, but you don't have the humanity, and the humanity we're talking about here is not being a union leader or being a pro-business. You are the conscience of the organization, conscience of the board to the workforce, and conscience of the workforce to the shareholders. When you have these three and they are well balanced, you will make a great success, even in this difficult, fast-paced, tough economic and social environments that we found ourselves. And what is also interesting is, I used to have a lot of back and forth with my CEO on some of the steps that were needful. And they will come, say, no, where do you expect me to get the money from? The board has just given me this task, and I still don't know where I will find the savings from to pay for it. And now you're coming with something that will cost me this much? No way. When your CEO pushes back, it's not because they don't care. They do, but they have a responsibility to discharge. to all the stakeholders. And they're expecting you in your persistence to convince them that what you are initiating is really necessary. And they're pushing back so that you too can think of how to make it happen. So when you approach your CEO, you expect him to wear his own cap, not your cap. And when he pushes back, after a series of iterations, you may eventually, and in most cases, I always have my way. Not because I am pushful, but because every time he pushes back, then I understand his fear and concern. Then I go back, do my homework, improve on my articulation of what needed to be done and how it could be done. And also search deeper to find sources that can help raise the fund to make it happen. And when it eventually happens, is actually the first beneficiary of such initiatives, and they will be thankful to you for making it happen. So part of the conversation we had was him reflecting on many of such initiatives and how we managed to pull it through together. So when your CEO pushes back, it's not the time to become very uncomfortable. There will always be very difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations, but it's not the time for you to become jittery or to become despondent or to abandon the important initiative that you want to push through. The pushback is just to help you refine it and help you think deeper on how to make it happen for the business. So these are the expectations, and this applies to the board as well. You can just take the CEO as representing the board to you. So how then can you be the commercial leader, the internal consultant, and the conscience of the organization? How can you, as an HR leader, develop and hone those skills? Well, to be a commercial business leader, you need to understand the connection. First, you need to understand the financial tools. P&L, you should be able to read and interpret the P&L. If you can't, approach your friends who are in finance, attend finance for non-finance manager. There are so many other ways you can develop that skill. It's not so difficult. Go online, use YouTube. There will be so many presentations on P&L and how to understand it. Same thing goes for balance sheet. Same thing goes for cash flow. You must understand how your business makes money. You must understand how what you do in HR affects the ability of your business to make money. So, and you must be able to help every employee, every worker in your organization to have similar understanding at their level. They don't have to understand the CEO or your ESCO level, kind of. For those who are operating on the shop floor, they should understand the commercial aspect of the work they do. And your role is to ensure that they have great employee experience that will make them productive. Because when you drive an organization that has employees with great employee experience, the return on assets, the return on sales, and other commercial indices of performance for your business will go through every imaginable scale. And that has to do with the way the company shows up with integrity to deliver on its promise, how they can see the connection between what they do and how you make money, how their career grows, and how they're able to share their own thoughts and ideas. Nobody tells them to shut up, and they're not working themselves to death. There is work and life balance, or what we call work and life integration. As internal consultants, again, it's about delivering value through the people. So your role comes in layers, okay? First, your contribution in the HR unit itself. Having good processes in place, good practices in place that are connected to the objective, the corporate objective of the business, and driving the right metrics, the metrics of productivity, the metrics of culture, LD culture, and growing leaders that will take the business into the future. Again, balancing all of that with the context of business, the various stakeholders and what they expect from the business. All of that will create value. So depending on your level in the organization, if you are the HR leader for the business, then you are the one that will orchestrate the work of the CEO and his team to create clear direction and connect every employee to that direction. So everybody's contribution becomes meaningful and they see how they are helping the business to make money. It's your job to ensure that the objectives of the organization are clearly articulated. The systems that will deliver those objectives are clearly defined. If they don't exist, you drive the definition of those. They can come in policies, in guidelines, in SOPs, in even principles. And the people and tools that will execute those systems are in place. They are empowered, they are trained, they are rewarded, they are disciplined, and their performance is monitored. And the aggregate of their performance deliver the business objective. That's at your level. Now, if you're at a lower level, you could be at the level of helping to create some of those systems. You could be at a lower level of helping to implement some of those systems. You could even be at a level of just tracking those processes. You could be at a desk that ensures those systems deliver their promises. So your role as an internal consultant, subject matter expert in HR function, you are to help deliver on those blocks of systems, people, and of the right culture that will make them happen. Of course, if you're at a very senior level, you should be working with leadership to ensure that the right leaders are in the right places and they develop the right strategy and deploy them appropriately to the rest of the organization, who will now take it up and build systems that will deliver the strategic objectives and implement those systems, ensure that people are in place, in the right places to execute and run those systems. The last one is being the conscience of the organization. And I will, sorry for the time, spend a little bit of time on this. So, HR shapes the beliefs, the thoughts that drive the actions of leaders. You're an internal coach. I'm not talking about, the chief human resources officer alone here, which is the lowest level in HR. Even if you are just an HR advisor or HR assistant, there are people you provide your service at your level to. If you are manning the pension desk, you are providing service to something. You are the chief clarity officer at that level. And your role starts with, if you want to be the conscience of the organization, starts with having some core values that you are holding on to, and those values should be aligned with the values of the organization. So those values should drive or shape or define your belief. Those beliefs should also drive your thinking, and your thinking will then drive your action. So you are to influence the thinking and actions of the people that you work with by shaping their beliefs, by pushing and embedding the values of the organization. So when I came into Flour Mills, we just launched our core values pilots. And my responsibility was to ensure that the pilot is embedded as our core beliefs in the business. And of course, we did a lot of marketing stuff, physical materials that you print, t-shirt and all those things. But those are not the items that drive it. At the end of the day, what drives it is the fact that when we recruit, our recruiting criteria are shaped by those core values. When we assess performance, they are shaped by those core values. When we build leadership academy, they are built with the foundation being on those core values, and so on and so forth. So it's your role to ensure the core values are, shaping the beliefs and thoughts and actions of the organization, not just the leaders, everybody in the organization. And secondly, again, your role is not to practice HR. Your role is to serve the stakeholders, leveraging HR practice. I've said a lot about that already. So, being the conscience of the organization, if we want to serve the stakeholders that we're talking about here, they include employees, the shareholders, and even the community in which we operate. So if you look at employees, for instance, to give them great employee experience, there are personal needs and there are work environment needs. People are said to quit their managers are not to quit their jobs. Those managers create the climatic condition, the smell of the place, the experience of that employees are exposed to in the work environment. So you want to create an environment that respects and supports every employee, an environment that is allowing them to do useful work, an environment that is helping them to shape a desirable future. And they have personal needs, like they want to have a voice. Pay all the money in this world, but reduce them to less than human. It's not rewarding enough. They will take the money for some time, and afterwards they will walk away. And they want to continue to grow. Nobody wants to work for a manager that is not helping them to grow. And from time to time, they want to be involved in different things so that they don't feel like being confined to same routine over and over again. So as conscience of the organization, we have to stand up for these personal and work climate needs as HR. If we don't do it, nobody else will do it. So we have to keep promoting, and I've identified these 6 as top on my list based on experience, based on what I have seen work. And I believe strongly that if you drive them, you'll get the desired result. So one of the feedback I got is, oh, Wale cares about people. It's all around ensuring these personal and work climate needs. Yes, strategic HR contribution is important, it's critical, but the environment is changing so fast every day. In fact, personal circumstances of individuals' lives are changing. So you have to go beyond the workbook, the textbook, the policies, the processes, the procedures. Beyond what they say that you hear and do that you see, to what they don't say, to what may be hidden that you won't see. So as you manage the work climate, you are shaping the culture in the organization to be conducive. So it's your role to manage the culture. It's your role to ensure that whatever is done is market driven at the end of the day. So we're not in a charity, but we can be in business and still be caring. And don't forget, things are changing faster than they used to. So don't bank on, oh, but that's the same person that came only 2 months ago and we did this and that for him or her. Things change faster than they used to in these days. It's a beautiful time to practice HR, but it's a time that demands more than what we learn in the workbooks, in the textbooks, or from experience. Your experience will be stretched beyond the boundaries. And last but not the least, is in all of this, every decision we are making, and you will make those decisions on a daily basis. The reason we write policies, the reason we write procedures, is so that we can standardize some decisions. And we'll only take care of out of policy decisions. And out of policy decisions should be exception, they shouldn't be the norm. The environment has changed. Out of policy decisions are becoming the norm. And you may say, okay, then we should standardize those new evolving situations into new policies. Then you write policies that will fill the empire building at the end of the day. You will write policies that will need several high cloud space to sail. I think we're approaching that phase of our practice where policy will be driven by just one thing, conscience. So it will just be a matter of what would the organization's conscience do, rather than what does the policy say. Interesting period. I wish us all the best as we meet the expectations of our investors, the shareholders, the board, and our managers for the HR leaders represented by the CEO. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, esteemed speaker, my uncle, my friend, my boss, my mentor. Thank you for revealing the mind of the CEO to us today. Now that we have heard that, I'm sure we know that HR does not exist now for the sake of HR. HR exists to deliver value to the organization and to support the agenda of the CEO, the overall, objectives and goals of the organization. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure we have questions, definitely. But before we take questions, we have on this call the number one civil servant, the number one employee of Ogun State, our esteemed head of service, Mr. Kolawole Peter Fagbon, is an esteemed member of the Institute, and he dropped in the chat room. He dropped a comment in the chat room, and I'm going to read it. He said, distinguished members of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, esteemed participants and honored guests, I extend a warm courtesy to you all on behalf of the Ogun State government and the entire public service of the state. as we convene for this significant state conference of CIPM, I am delighted to witness the collective dedication to advancing the realm of personnel management. The role HR plays in shaping effective and efficient workplaces is unparalleled, and your commitment to continuous learning is commendable. Over the next 2 days, I trust that your discussions and interactions will pave way for innovative solutions and shared insights that will further contribute to the growth of your respective organizations and the prosperity of our dear state. As you embrace this opportunity to learn, network, and collaborate, I wish you a fruitful and rewarding conference ahead. Thank you, Fagun Kolawole Peter, Head of Service, Ogun State. Thank you very much, esteemed Head of Service. We get people, we get backing, plenty. I don't just want Tasi Lagos State. If not, I will say Lagos State, share your Head of Service, attend your program, but let's not shake tables here. Thank you very much. We are indeed grateful. We want to apologize. We heard some people were held back, they were held back from logging in, they were held in the, what do we call it now? The room, waiting room. It's unlike us. We don't usually do waiting room during our events. I think the way technology decided to take us this time was the reason why people were held. We are indeed sorry for being held back. We are sorry. We will make the video available to everyone. So whatever it is you missed while being held at the waiting room, you can capture when you get the video. Now we know there are questions. So if you have questions, I don't know, Uncle Wale, if you have seen any of the questions that warrant.
Let me stop sharing my screen to see. Okay, I'm in the chat room now.
Okay.
There's a question here. Okay, it's scrolling so fast. The chats are coming and the question.
Please, maybe we can also say that, maybe we should also say that if you have questions, you can raise your digital hand. Exactly. And we will recognize you to ask your question. So if you have questions.
What if your CEO only do what he has in mind, even after taking your advice? Well, thanks for that question. And that's a question I hear often. What I can tell you in my personal experience is that your CEO is checking to see if what you are actually suggesting is something that you have thoroughly thought through. So when he pushes back, it's not because he doesn't want to do it or because he has made up his mind to do something else. He's only checking to see if you've done, and sometimes when we present some of these ideas, we have some bumpy rides sometimes. For some of us, there is the presence fright, that comes when we would have rehearsed everything we want to tell the CEO. And in this sense, I'm not just talking of those who bear the title CEO, whoever is leading the team that we are going to approach. And when we now get to them, we begin to have a bumpy ride. We begin to get tongue twisted. And he's looking for what you don't say. He's taking some cues, some body languages to know if you are totally confident of what you're pushing. And once he sees some kind of hesitation anywhere, he will push back so that you can go back and rework. And I dare say that, look, you can't push anything through with any CEO unless you are resilient. Your resilience is what makes it happen. Your personal conviction is what makes it happen. Like Boye said yesterday at the dinner I told you about. He said, well, we got some right, we got a few of them wrong, but the net return was positive. It's not like even you are 100% confident of everything you push. But the bottom line is you must be convinced. And if you try once and he's pushing back, you try again. And if he has another option for you, don't forget the fact that the owners of the business saw you before they appointed him to be your manager. So allow him to play the role so he can overrule whatever you have brought. But by the way, if his choice now turned out to be wrong, he will respect you more. So either way, you win. And again, build your professional relationship with your CEO. Go beyond the routine of going to him when he calls for you, going to her when she calls for you, and going to him or her when you need approval. How often do you walk into the office of your boss to just say, hello, just want to catch up for a few minutes with you? Or hello, how are you today? Or hello, looking at your face, it's like you missed your sleep yesterday. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Are you the confident that your CEO will bounce ideas off? And I'm not talking to only CHRO or HRD or head of HR or HR manager or senior managers. Even if you are HR advisor, who is the CEO figure in your own role? How often do you walk up to that person and try and gauge the pulse of the person? So you can never be wrong in pushing the right ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I'm sure we are clear about that already. Now we have two hands up. Also, before we move on, okay, let's quickly attend to these two questions. Pastor Laoye Julie Os, please. Can you unmute and ask your question? Let me give you co-host, right? So you can. Okay, Pastor Laoye Julius, please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, sir, Mr. President. I really want to appreciate our guest speaker for that insightful and educative and informative presentation. I really love the testimony he shared about the statements of his boss that for 9 years, no crisis or conflict of interest. Anyway, not many CEOs are in that category. Now, as you said, sir, putting on the cap of the CEO by the HR leader, I guess it implies being a think tank for the CEO. Now, how do you manage a CEO who thinks by so doing, you are trying to steal the honor from him, despite the fact that he could see the potential in you as HR leader? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, my pastor. Let me say this. You don't put on the CEO's cap except when you are one-on-one with him. I repeat myself. Put on the CEO cap only when you are alone with yourself or you are alone with the CEO. And be upfront with your CEO that, boss, I understand what you're trying to achieve. Or my senior pastor, sir, I understand what you're driving at. But, you know, putting myself in your shoes, I think this is what the board expects of me. Putting myself in your shoes, I think, would you come and say hello to my colleagues? putting myself in your shoes. By the way, that's my successor. So I'm speaking to a conference, a CFP conference.
Hello.
Well,
Yeah, good morning, ma. Please, can you come closer? We want to see your face.
Hello.
Oh, it's good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I hope you will be as fantastic as Mr. Wale Adediran is to us.
You'll be far better, I can assure you. Already she's ticking that box.
Thank you very much.
I promise. He's my big
So we are adopting you to Ogun State branch as from this day. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. And she's a pastor too, anyway.
Okay, thank you.
So just a way of buying time from my new boss. That's our new group HR and services director. And she's taking over fully from Friday, 1st of September. So don't wear the cap of the CEO in the public, please. Wear it in the privacy of your own office or closet. Because the reason you're wearing the cap is so that you can feel the pains of that cap. It's so that you can think the way the wearer of that cap should think. And be upfront with your CEO. So my CEO knows my wearing his cap when I'm chatting with him is stepping into his pain and bearing the pressure of his office and what that office demands. Is not to take the shine off him. So when you're in the public, give the credit to your boss. In actual fact, it doesn't matter how well you do on the job. When you were selected, it was his decision that counted the most. So if he was the primary decision maker in giving you that platform, whatever you do with that platform, he is the first to take the credit. And he can decide to share as much of that credit as he wants with you. I tell people, when you rise in your career to a certain level, the question is no longer about whether you have the functional skill to do the job or not, or whether you have the business acumen skill to do the job or not. The question is whether you have the goodwill of the leader of that team for you to be on his team or a team or not. That's why you can't afford to, it's like you are a serving minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and people begin to praise you like some minister used to be praised. And that minister now goes out there wearing the cap of Mr. President. You'll be fired. It doesn't work that way. And God is not an author of confusion.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Now we have...
Pastor Badru, I saw a question in the chat room asking, how do we put this to practice in a faith-based organization where decisions are made at some other levels? And my response is as follows. If, even in that faith-based organization, if you are assigned as an HR advisor, assistant, manager, supervisor, officer, admin officer, and you are saddled with the responsibility to help be the face of the faith-based organization to the workforce of that faith-based organization. Number one, you automatically qualify as the conscience of that organization to the workforce and to the faith-based organization. What does that mean? You are the bridge. So when the workforce is going through pain, for instance, there is fuel subsidy removal and the cost of making it to an activity ground had suddenly tripled. You don't expect the 150 people that you're looking after to go to the organization and say, sorry, senior pastor, we're going through this. you are the one that will present that situation to the senior pastor in charge to say, hey, sir, this is the situation that our 80 people or 60 people or 200 people are facing on the field. That's been the conscience of the organization. And if the senior pastor explains to you, unfortunately, we're in a difficult situation now. We cannot afford so much at this point. Being the conscience of the organization means going back to those people and telling them that proactively we've observed that these changes are affecting you and there's a need for us to adapt. And in order for the adaptation to be possible, the organization is looking at ways to assist you. But the current situation we have is such that we can't do so much at this time, but we can do X, Y, Z. So you are playing that role, that pillar. Now, the pillar of being the internal consultant, you are the one that will provide solutions to the organization, to the senior pastor. And he, you're right, will make the decision. We're not saying you must be the one making the decision, but we're saying you must influence the decision. And last but not the least is every faith-based organization is God's business. And what's the meaning of business? Business is you put something in and you expect return on the input that you have put into it. And you expect that return to be greater than the input. So you are sowing a seed, you expect harvest to be more. So faith-based organization is existing for God's agenda. And you will bear seeds and be expected to bring return. So you should understand what seed that faith-based organization is sowing and what kind of return or harvest the organization is expecting. It's just like profit organization too will put in money and expect return on that investment. So all the elements can be driven. So if you have that understanding of what the faith-based organization is driving in God's agenda, your role is to ensure that the workforce are connected to that agenda and that they understand how their activities are contributing to that agenda. So you could see all the three expectations that you will drive in the secular can be replicated even in faith-based organization, because first is God's business. There's an agenda, and it's about planting a seed and harvesting the fruit. Secondly, you are the internal consultant. HR practice can be leveraged for the agenda of the faith-based organization to be driven by the workforce. And last but not the least, you are the conscience of that faith-based organization. In fact, it's even easier when you're in a faith-based organization to play the role of being the conscience, because beyond the law of contract of employment in a faith-based organization, there is a higher law.
It's a calling.
There is a calling. Thank you, sir.